All right, welcome to episode one of Speculative Thoughts. This is Thoughts on Awareness, but because this is the first episode, I have to give myself a brief introduction, right? So, my name is Say. I'm a scientist. This is how I think, right? I take in as much information as I can get. That's not just a habit I built. Honestly, I'm fully convinced that that's how I was wired from birth. Sensing, observing, analyzing constantly. It has never stopped, right? But here's where most people stay stuck. They collect information and just hold it. I don't do that. I use information against itself. I take patterns, run them against other patterns, and find out what actually holds up. What survives, that process is worth keeping. What doesn't gets cut or potentially saved for later. That's basically the core function on how I came to any of these conclusions. I was just aware enough to think about how other things are aware, right? But now to get to the meat and the potatoes or whatever, this document does not care about any official APA, yada yada, or other standard. The point of this is to be as direct and coherent as possible without losing any personality. These are just my subjectively objective thoughts and reasonings behind information and information processing. Information is the general term for anything encoded in a medium. Right now, information is flooding your brain. At the same time, your brain is processing that said information and decoding it into something useful. I would say this processing of processing information happens all over the universe, just at different levels in different ways. Awareness, in my personal opinion, is the ability to process any form of information. Awareness is always scaled with intelligence and consciousness. You must have a high base awareness to manifest either one. I would say the framework of the object limits layers to awareness. Yes, I'm referring to living beings as objects. For example, rock has no or very low base awareness. It will only process information when an input is given, never on its own. It is purely aware of the laws of nature. This is why I think it has a base level of awareness. To expand this idea, every particle, subatomic or not, is aware of the fundamental laws of physics. I'm certain the standard model can be interpreted in this general direction. What this tells us is that awareness has floors, not just ceilings. Even the simplest structure in the universe participates in awareness at some base level. The difference between a rock and a human is not the presence of awareness, it is the depth or volume of it. The rock processes one layer, physical law. The human processes many, physical, chemical, biology, emotion, language, and abstraction. Each layer requires the other one beneath it. You cannot have language without chemistry. You cannot have emotion without biology. Intelligence. The word intelligent has many synonyms that mean the same thing in different contexts, but overall it means the ability to adapt in any given situation. I would say there are layers to intelligence limited by the framework of the object. A thermostat is intelligent in a very narrow sense. It receives information, compares it to a target, and acts. That adaptation within an extremely limited framework that is adaptation within an extremely limited framework. An animal adapts physically, socially, and emotionally. A human adapts all of that plus abstractly. We can adapt to problems that don't exist yet, which is a layer no other object we know of can consistently reach other than potentially AI. This is important because intelligence is not a single thing, it is a stack. Each layer of intelligence requires the awareness layer beneath it to function. The thermostat is not more or less intelligent than the animal. It is intelligent within a completely different and much smaller framework. Comparing them directly is like comparing a sentence to a book. Consciousness is where things get hard to define, but I will try. My working definition is this: consciousness is awareness that is aware of itself, not just the processing of information, but the processing of the fact that you are processing. This is a recursive layer that I think requires sufficiently complex framework to emerge. The rock is not conscious because it never turns inward. The animal may have a partial version of this. Humans clearly operate in this loop constantly. We think about thinking, we question our own processing. That recursive quality is what I believe separates consciousness from intelligence. Here's one way to visualize Here's one way to visualize the relationship between the three. Awareness is the capacity to process. Intelligence is what you do with that processing. Consciousness is the object noticing it's doing both. These three are not separate categories, they are nested. You cannot have consciousness without intelligence, and you cannot have intelligence without awareness. But both awareness can exist without the other two, as it does in the rock, and the particle, and the gravitational pull between the two objects that have never been touched by light. Where does this lead? Many people, wait, actual side note. Many people have asked me, oh, what's the point? What's the point of this? Why are you doing this? And honestly, I don't have any idea. I don't know. I can't answer that question. But let me continue the paragraph so I can show you the logical conclusion. If awareness exists at the particle level and scales upward through the framework of any given object, then the universe itself could be understood as a deeply layered awareness system, not in a spiritual or mystical sense necessarily, but in a structural one. The universe processes its own information constantly. Every interaction is a computation, every cause is an input, and every effect is an output. Now it's time for you to take my idea and play with it. I would appreciate if people commented what they found because, you don't sharpen a stone against a sponge. You sharpen steel with steel. Sharpen a stone with a stone. If you get what I'm saying. But anyways, that's it.